Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather, the director from the Center for Nonprofit Resources. I'm so excited that you were able to join us today, and even more excited that Tom's able to join us today. Give us a wave there, Tom. Yeah.
Hello.
And Tom has been so flexible with us. You know, he was supposed to be here in person, but he has been able to help pivot to this virtual environment. We're so grateful that he's been able to do that. He's literally the speaker who needs no introduction. And Tom, do not exaggerate when I tell people that you are coming. The people who are in the know, many of them are on the call, people who are professional fundraisers would literally clutch their heart and gasp that you were joining us today. So we're excited. I do want to introduce Heather Slough. She is the president of our local AFP chapter here in Northwest Ohio. We partner with AFP for workshops such as this, you know, such a wonderful partnership. Heather, would you like to say a few words to the group this morning?
Sure. Thank you so much. As Heather mentioned, I'm Heather Slough, and this year I'm honored to be president of our Northwest Ohio Association of Fundraising Professionals. And as Heather mentioned, we partner with the center throughout the year, and particularly for one workshop a year, such as today. So we're delighted to have Tom here with us today. Tom, please know how grateful we are for your flexibility in scheduling and for your willingness to meet us here online. For those of you that are looking for opportunities to expand your professional network and your base of knowledge with philanthropy, I would encourage you to look into membership opportunities with AFP. We are an organization comprised of 240 chapters across the country, particularly a few here in Ohio. In fact, last week I was on a AFP chapter leader call with those in like positions such as mine across the state of Ohio. And Mike Geiger was on that call. He's the president and CEO of AFP Global. And Mike mentioned that anywhere from 400 to 600 people are joining AFP every month. And they're joining for the educational opportunities and the sense of community that AFP offers. So I can tell you here locally, we have about 110 members. So if you're looking to connect with aspiring leaders or senior leaders, we have all of the above here locally for you, from organizations that have one or two people that are doing all the work to large organizations like UT, where I work, or BG or ProMedica. So please do look for the opportunity to join by visiting our AFP NWO website. There are many scholarship opportunities for you if you need a little assistance with your membership. But it's a great opportunity to network with others in the profession and to stay ahead of trends and best practices. The other announcement I wanted to make was to encourage you all to join us on November 12th for National Philanthropy Day. Like many things this year, it will be on a virtual platform. We'll be streaming our events in which we will honor a number of outstanding philanthropists and organizations. That'll be streamed online and then later broadcast in the evening at 8 p.m. on WGTE. So please do look to be a part of National Philanthropy Day and our celebration this year. And so with that, I will hand things back over to Heather Bradley. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Heather. So just a couple of quick things. A big shout out to the Greater Toledo Community Foundation for underwriting registration for these online Zoom-based trainings through the remainder of the year. If you're interested in pursuing the certificate for nonprofit management, it's a great way to start logging hours, and you can check our website or give me a call if you want to learn more about that certificate. And just to set the stage for Tom, he will be joining us 3 times. And we were trying to make it easy for you. You could sign up for all of them at once or make a choice for one. But Tom will also be returning later this week on the 15th to continue the discussion. And then will be returning on, let me make sure I get this date right. Wrong month, the 27th. And he's going to do an intensive where he's going to give live feedback on some of the pieces and that you all have a chance to be working on. So without further ado, Tom, welcome to the Center for Nonprofit Resources.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for coming. I missed the chance. I was told Toledo is really great. And so it's kind of disappointing to be here in rainy Rhode Island, where I live, up in my office in the trees. And but we're going to have fun anyway. And what you're looking at, I hope, and Heather, give me a sign. You can hear me, okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Yep.
Okay, and you see the dog, right? And okay, so let's get going. This is the nuts and bolts, and they're my nuts and bolts. They're the things I think are worth kind of having front of mind. I mean, there's a lot of technique and so forth to copywriting for fundraising, and training matters. It does. However, at the same time, it's kind of your attitude that probably contributes the most to whether you're making good money or not. And one of the things that just came out from the Better Fundraising Company, if you're not aware of them, they're based in Seattle. It's Stephen Screen and Jim, his partner, and they work mostly with small to medium-sized organizations. You can go to their website, the Better Fundraising Company, and sign up for their free what is it? Every Friday they send out a graphic, and this was a recent one they sent out. You serve at the pleasure of your donors. And this pretty much sums up the philosophy that has been dominant, well, since the 2000s. That would be called, the technical term is donor centricity, but that's kind of gotten muddied. And but the attitude has not. Basically, your donors are your customers in fundraising, and therefore you have to pay attention to them. So the first thing is target audience, of course. I don't come out of a nonprofit background. I come out of a commercial marketing background, 15 more plus years selling stuff. And in that world, you learn to worship the target audience and pay very close attention to that audience and make everything convenient for that audience, and so forth and so on. So I have found that many times we really don't have a clear picture in our head. Particularly, people wander into fundraising, or nonprofits come into existence, and that happens very easily in the United States, and but they don't have a business plan, and so they're not thinking about how are we actually going to sustain this. And so this is to show you a little bit about the realities of the audience, the target audience you're trying to persuade. And this data comes from a large direct mail firm based in outside of Pittsburgh called True Sense. And they have a mountain of data, but I've checked this data over and over the years in different countries, and pretty much in all the English speaking countries, this is consistently the case, that donors typically are much older than you might assume. They're 55 and older. And the reason for that is simply, it has nothing to, well, it has something to do with their age, but it isn't that you get more generous as you get older. What you get is more surplus income as you get older. So in your earlier years, you're building a life, buying, particularly if you have a family, you're just all out, basically living check to check, trying to keep the kids in clothing and food and getting ready for college and all the rest of that. And it isn't until around age 55 that people start to say, I've got everything I need, and yeah, maybe I could give a little away. And so their giving starts to ramp up at age 55 and kind of plateaus at age 65, but doesn't stop. I mean, they just the US typical, conventional anyway, retirement age. I don't know if it's typical anymore, but the at age 65, what you do is you tend to continue giving, assuming your financial situation is okay, and and you don't give a lot more, but you continue until basically you pass. And so you can look at this pie chart. Half of this pie chart, 46% of this, are people 65 and older. And the next biggest slice of pie is 55 to 64. That's 2/3 of your donors are 55 and older. Now, the reason I bring this up over and over and over is that we have to have a clear sense in our heads about who it is we are talking to, because if we don't, we often get our messaging screwed up. For instance, here is planned giving, okay, at a hospital. So this is an institution, similar to, a university in that sense, because institutions tend to have a certain outlook on the world. I'm laughing because it can be a problematic outlook. And, if you don't have these people in your head when you're writing your appeal letter, then you've got the wrong people in your head. This is your target audience. And I just pulled this off one of my clients the other day. This was their legacy society at their annual meeting. Now, another reason I bring this up, this is nuts and bolts. This is, how do we make more money? Well, it will depend somewhat on things like writing, which is my trade, copywriting, but it will also depend on notions like, do you have a realistic idea of who you're speaking to? And you will hear this often. We need younger donors, and usually it's somebody, maybe a board member, maybe the boss even, kind of coming up with the magic wand approach to fundraising. And if we had younger donors, well, they're going to stay with us forever. And yeah, maybe. Very few of them will, however. And here's some more data. Just, you can see the date from Mark Phillips over in London, October 2020. So this month, this data was recirculated by Mark. It was actually done by Barclays Bank 2 years ago. And they talked to lots of charities about, what age is most useful to you from a donation standpoint. Under 30 was of almost no use. 30 to 50 was of some use, but they tended to be giving in sponsorship, for like a 5K run or events like that, where you're asking your buddies to, sponsor you, and they're not really attached to your cause. They're attached to you. And then finally on the right, as you can see, very important to 63% of the charities, people over 50, because they give, well, in the UK, this is much more common than the US. They give by direct debit from their banks. So they, basically you set it, and if you don't, drive them away somehow, it just keeps going forever and ever until the bank account closes. So, here's one of my more recent books, and it was an attempt by me to kind of put to rest some of the myths that haunt the fundraising world, and one of which is, you're going to get your donors for life, or we need younger donors. It was getting to the point where it was almost, it had become a default myth. We need younger donors. No, you do not. You really don't. But in this book, there are these 40 questions, and I world sourced the answers. I didn't sit there dreaming about it and think it up. I talked to experts around the world and said, well, what is the right answer to this? And one of the questions was, how long does the average donor actually stick around? And I talked to some of the big shots around the world: Australia, England, the United States, Canada, Ireland. And the consensus, when they finally got down to one, because these very analytical people, and they would bang this ball back and forth for years if you didn't insist on an answer, but they said finally, okay, the average donor is going to stay with a single charity for somewhere between 4 to 6 years. Now, if you had acquired that donor as a monthly donor, or you converted them into monthly donations, they would stay a little bit longer. Inertia is your friend with monthly giving, because people tend to just keep doing it, and they don't, particularly above a certain age. Above the age of 33, I heard from Australia, when you are a charity that they give to through their credit card, they'll basically continue. Under 33, they tend to cancel. They will come in and out of charities much more rapidly. So that's the reality of this. And when you have that reality in front of you, realize, okay, first of all, we need an acquisition program, because we're losing people out the other end all the time, and you are, not just because they give up on you, or they stop loving you as much as they might love some other charity, but they die, or they move, or all sorts of reasons. We're a very fluid country, not at the moment, of course, but usually. Okay, so what is real? This is the one of the biggest aha moments I am aware of in nonprofit fundraising, and it's been talked about a lot by some of the people you see listed here. These are all brand names in my world, the copywriting world. And, again, she is not your donor. You are one of her charities. I'm sure that is not a surprising statement to any of you, but sometimes the nonprofit world acts as if that were kind of reversed. She is our donor, and you don't own them. They pick you for a reason. Now, what is the reason? Well, here's some good advice from Seth Godin. And Seth, many of you know, because he's a very famous marketer, mostly works in the commercial world, but occasionally steps into the nonprofit world. And he's just smart. He's very insightful. He came out of the MBA program at Stanford and has published a lot of best-selling books. And he said this, he's talking here about giving. The story's about the donor. So when I give to you, when I give to your cause, it's because of my story, not because of your story. You just happen to fit into my story. And maybe I'm just doing it, as you can see, the second paragraph might be the story of doing the right thing. Okay, so I feel this is kind of almost my duty, but that's the way I was raised or something. Or I want to fit in, I want to help somebody who's a friend, or I want to honor a memory. And of course, we all know from that giving in memory of is an extremely popular trigger for a first gift, maybe the only gift, but still it triggers one. Or to be part of a community. That's, there's the big, how complicated is this? Well, it's not complicated. At one level, it is, can you fit into my story? Now, what you're looking at is a recruiting poster from World War I, and 10 million people responded to those three words and that pointing finger, and went to the trenches, and I don't know, quite a few of them did not come back. But that's I've labeled it. It's an offer. That's all you need to do in fundraising, is make an offer to me. And then, hey, let's have a donor. Let's see what a donor looks like. Oh, there's an average, typical American donor, not by race, because you don't have to be white, but by gender and by age. She's pretty typical. And the sign she's holding up there, make me feel special. Well, that's all she really wants from you. And are you delivering that? Or maybe you're delivering something else. I don't know. So this is kind of, what is the bottom line in fundraising communications? Well, the bottom line is you have to have an offer. And there you go. You just have to tell me I'm needed. And then the other bottom line is you have to know who you're talking to and what she wants from you. Okay. So if you get those two things figured out, you really are going to do way better in your fundraising. So let's go into the psychology of this a little bit. When you're looking at my two friends over in the UK, although here they're actually at the Art Museum in Indianapolis, and it's Dr. Adrian Sargent and Dr. Jen Shang. She's a psychologist and he's a marketing professor. As it happens, they are married and they run something called the Institute for Sustainable Philanthropy. Now, the sustainable is the key word. The Institute is because it was born inside a university, but the sustainable is how do we make more money? And all of their research has to do with making more money, not the same amount, but more money from the very same people you're already talking to, actually using the very same communications you're already sending out. So the promise is pretty big. And we run, well, we did. we 2 years, and we were sort of the last flight out of Scotland. We were running this master class up in the on the shores of Loch Ness with these two guys, myself, and a small class. We had a limited number because we can only feed so many. And the idea was we're going to teach you about the psychology that leads to higher giving, and the promise there was we would double your donation, or you would double your donations in about 12 to 18 months if you were even any good at all. You don't have to be great at it. If you were any good at all at what's called Phil Psych, the philosophy, the psychology of philanthropy. Now, here's one of the things that their research confirmed. And again, how surprising is this? Well, it's not when you see it in plain language like this. When you like your donors, they'll like you back. And the way they show their fondness for you, for the cause, for what you do for them, for your part in their story, is that they give you money, more money than they would have given you if you were not liking them all that much or all that well. Another part of the research found, and again, what are they doing? Are they finding things that nobody has ever discovered before? No, they're going in and clarifying and verifying using very rigorous scientific methods that these things actually do matter to people. And what their research found, people give for their own reasons. You know this. And every donor is on a personal journey. So if you looked at the people I give to, or my family or my household gives to, you're going to see we can explain why each one of those charities is on the list. And we can explain why we have a top 10, and we can explain what the top 3 are. And those are all related to us personally. So now this was interesting. So I'm stumbling out of no, that's not true. I was coming out of a midnight mass in Amsterdam. No, that's not true either. It was a bar, but we were coming out of something, a place in Amsterdam and the one in Europe. And this guy is next to me, Richard Radcliffe. That's him on the screen. He's a Brit. He's a Londoner. And he has individually in focus groups, talked to over 25,000 donors about why they make gifts to their favorite so-called causes, charities. And I always carry a pen and a small pad of paper just for occasions like this. And he said something and I wrote it down. This is verbatim. That night in Amsterdam, he said donors, these 25,000 he's talked to, donors are staggeringly ignorant of the causes they support. And this was an amazing light bulb going off for me, because he didn't mean that in a mean way. He didn't mean, oh, well, those terrible donors. He meant, you don't have to educate donors. They're there for their own reasons. And so what kind of reasons do they have? Well, they have reasons like this. They have their own values. They were brought up a certain way. They have a belief system. They have their own interests, like bird watching. If you're a nature lover, you're going to give to a bunch of nature charities. They've had their own life experiences, some of them tragic, some of them good, some of them, they encounter a situation they've never seen before and they go, no, that has to change. And things like that. They have their emotional set, their fears, their angers, their hopes. Look at this election coming. They have empathy, because humans, biology fitted us, our evolution fitted us with empathy. And not every animal has empathy, but we can actually feel the pain, the distress of other people. This is an amazing advantage, but but you have to think about it. Now, here's one of the major, this is True Sense again. And if you go online, you can go to the True Sense site, and I believe you can still get this fundraising field guide, which is free. It's a PDF. And it's very helpful for this kind of thinking. How do we think about our target audience? And you can see a child there. She's about to put a coin into the Salvation Army bucket. But what that's about, as True Sense points out here, is that people like to give locally. Everybody wants to live in the best place on earth. It's good for your property values, if nothing else. But they know that there are problems in their own backyard, and they want to do something. They want to help. They want to help. And, not everybody. In fact, the number of people that actually step up and give to any one cause is relatively small. But that is one of the key triggers, is that local aspect. So you have here, for instance, if you sent this envelope out, you'd probably get pretty much 100% opening rate, because it's your old backyard. Everybody has to know, what's that dark secret? What is he talking about? Now, let's look at some more stuff that's important to the psychology of giving. This is a certain kind of test. We have about, we being Adrian, Jen, and I, have developed about 12 different little tests that allow people to kind of very quickly decide whether what they're about to send out as a communication is actually functionally built to succeed, or functionally maybe not going to succeed. And one of the things we look for is, where's the enemy? Now, the enemy is there. It's part of a formula, and I'll show you in just a sec. But it's meant to answer this question. See, if there are no problems to solve, then donors have nothing, literally nothing to do. And that's not good, because that means there's no reason for them to get past their inertia, get off their butt, get off the sofa, and make a gift to you. So here's where it came from. Now, the guy there, the forehead anyway, that's Stephen Pidgeon. He's another Brit. And he built the largest direct mail fundraising firm in England. Served all the biggies and the littlies too. But they were all served by this one storytelling formula that you see in the middle of your screen. There's the vision. Where do we want to be? If we could go out of existence, what would that vision be? Or if we could do everything we wanted to do, what would that vision be? Then you have the people served at the very bottom. That's, the puppies and kittens and kids and families and blah, 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 students and patients and so forth. Then you have the hero, which in Stephen's case, he was kind of a pre-donor centricity guy. So the hero in his case was the charity, but we've evolved that now, and it is the hero is now the supporter slash charity. The donor is giving through you to make something happen, not giving to you. And then finally is the enemy. Now, the enemy can be anything. The enemy can be anything. Right now, one of my clients is called USA for UNHCR, and they are collecting money in America, in the United States, for to help refugees in camps all over the world. And there are about 70 million refugees around the world right now. And the enemy there, in some cases, is we're getting near to winter. And some of these camps are in places that get snow, and they are not places you want to be living in a tent, but that's the situation they are in. And so the enemy, for a lot of the appeals going out in the December, January, February timeframe, will reference winter. That will be the enemy. They escaped tyranny, they escaped torture, they escaped all the civil war, but they can't escape winter. And so that's the enemy there. Or you can see that t-shirt that is shown there. I bought that in Detroit, Everybody versus Cancer. And there, obviously, cancer is your general enemy. These things aren't complicated, really. In fact, we overthink. I think one of the besetting sins of the nonprofit world is we kind of overthink things. Here's Julie Edwards. She is the now past ED, but she moved the Humane Society of Northeast Georgia from making a little bit of money to making a ton of money every year. And she did it with these kinds of communications. And I just labeled the various paragraphs here so that you could see what she's actually doing. She's giving you some of her love. She's liking you. You have a heart of gold, solid gold. And I see your heart in our work every day. She's liking you. And that's up top, that's up front, not at the end, because putting stuff at the end is where you put it if you want it not to be seen. If you want it to be noticed, you put it right up front. And then she goes, your heart comforts, rescues like Lydia as they recover from unimaginable pain. So you're bringing the fight in, you're bringing the fight in, you're bringing the fight in. And this is a cover letter for her donor newsletter, which makes a lot of money. Here's another one. This is from a different charity. This is Ireland. It's a Catholic charity, and it does work mostly in Africa and to help people, poor. Help the poor, feed the poor. In this case, they did work in Rwanda, which, as you recall, 1994 had a genocide. And so this is coming to certain supporters, not everybody. You can see there's a seal there, 25-year supporter. This was a special appeal to people who had given for 25 years because they had a significant number of them. For one thing, the connection here is the Catholic Church, and it is Ireland after all, and the Republic of, and so you can say certain things to this target audience that you wouldn't necessarily say if if the whole world were your audience. Let's look at some of the tools you have. Okay, again, this is the nuts and bolts session. So these are the things you do in donor communications. Now, the first thing is you have to know why you're doing donor communications. And I've distilled it down to just one thing. You're trying to make your donor feel good. Now, that there are many ways you can make me as your donor feel good. You can see what they are there in red. That's just some of them. You can think up a whole bunch, I bet, yourself. But you make me feel important. You make me feel needed. You make me feel special. You thank me beyond expectations. You take me on some kind of journey. You make me proud of what I'm doing. And how do you do that? Well, you have three kinds of communications. That's it. That's all you need in donor communications. You ask for my help, you thank me for that help, and then you report back to me. What did you do with my philanthropy, with the help I gave you willingly? And but there's a problem with this, because people don't necessarily realize that the ask is part of a system. It is not by itself. It is not the single most important thing. In fact, it's actually the least important thing to the donor. It is most important to insiders, but the least important to outsiders. The real treasure is going to be coming from your thanks and your reporting. And that's the stuff you being the general charity world. And I look at thousands of pieces of donor communications and I analyze them, and and then write books about it and teach an online course and so forth and so on. But I see a lot of stuff, and I can tell you the thanking is kind of mets, and the reporting is usually off base totally. What your thank yous and your newsletters and now social media and so forth, what all these things are, these are your ways of talking to your base and to your potential base, people that have not yet given you a gift but might at some point. This is how you hug them. You reach out and hug them through your communications. Now, I'll refer back to institutions again. Universities and hospitals are different. Their way of hugging people is to try to push information down their throat. And that is the least effective way to get somebody to give you a gift. You want to actually hug them. Why? Because, as you can see here, kiss 8 out of 10 goodbye. 8 out of 10 first-time donors, and this is a number that has been consistent for 20 years of research, 8 out of 10 do not give a second gift unless you get them in on monthly giving, in which case inertia works in your favor. Now, how do you get people, how do you improve that percentage a bit? You want to get 3 out of 10, not 2 out of 10 to give you a second gift, which is a really hard lift. Well, you don't thank me for that thing I did, for that buck or check or credit card I gave you. You thank me for who I am. That is Phil Psych. That is the psychology of philanthropy. You thank me for who I am. And for those of you that follow Twitter, as I do, this is my main, Twitter is my main professional feed. And one of the people you should definitely follow is Lisa Sargent. And she's one of the world's greatest copywriters. She's based up in New Hampshire. She is fully booked out, so don't even try. But this is the way she writes. And, thank you for your courage, for your faith. And you can see all the other words. This is her short list, get it? And this is an actual piece of communications from an actual charity. This is Vita Hoven. And it came to me on Valentine's Day, as you might have guessed. And it's an email, and it's an email just saying hi. And look at the subject line: meow and forever, Tom. We love you. Okay, that's pretty clear right there. I got a hug, and then I open it up. I got love is in the air. Thanks to you. Another hug. Hey, dear Tom, today and every day, you really are everything that's right about this world. More hugging. You show up. You recycle whenever possible. You smile at strangers, but you don't stop there. You just can't contain your goodness and love, Tom. In other words, it's all about me. And the woman who writes this, Beth Bial, she's a PhD minister, and this is an orphanage in Tijuana, Mexico, one of the most dangerous cities on the face of the earth. And these are kids who have nobody protecting them. And they're on the streets, and they come into this orphanage. They get clothed, they get health care, they get fed, they sleep safely at night. And because they've been around for 30 years, we also know that most of them go to college. So this is an amazing place. And this is the nature of their thank you program, right? All right, so here we're going to go a little even deeper into the psychology, just to give you a taste of it, because I can't give you too much, but I can give you a sense of how things are being done at the very highest levels of donor communications. And one of the things, again, we're talking about psychology, and so we're talking about human well-being and what goes into a sense of well-being in a human. Well, there were the three things. None of this I knew. Jen has finally more or less trained me. I had to go to sessions with her 10 different times to finally understand this. But competence, autonomy, and connectedness. And I'll show you what that kind of looks like. We were creating a new donor newsletter. It's just mailing this week, I think. And it's for the refugee people. And this was a draft cover. And the only reason this draft cover existed was to get some of the language figured out and also to make sure that we were dealing with these three aspects of human well-being. Now, autonomy means simply, I choose to make a gift. This is that you didn't force me to. I chose to make a gift. That's autonomy. And that's why we named it Because You Care. What do we do for connectedness? Well, it's the special COVID-19 because we're all suffering from that. We have a teaser there, a tent called Home, and another way to connect because we all have some kind of home. And where in the world your compassion now walks, another chance to connect with people. We're going to take them on a journey to another land. And the competence is me feeling like I am doing the right thing. I am doing something well. And we knew from research that one of the reasons people supported refugees is because they hated the immigration policies current in the United States. We used to be the great refugee nation. Now we're not. So they want to protest that. And their method of protesting, again, they're giving through you to do something. Yeah, they're helping refugees, but they're also through that gift protesting the immigration policy of the United States. So this is how it finally looked after, a team of people, and there are about 6 different people working hard on this, put it together. This is what it finally looked like when it left and is going into the mail. So it has the same name, Because You Care. The story has changed. Now it's the winter and the pandemic closing on the camps. Look at the envelope, though. That's the thing on the left. This is what comes into your mailbox. And remember, if you like me, I'll like you back. You stand for refugees on our suffering planet. I'm telling you that you're doing something. That's your competence. You stand for refugees. Can we tell you how much good you've done during the pandemic? Now, there's autonomy. Can we tell you? That gives you the choice. And all we're trying to do, again, it's an envelope. So what's the purpose of an envelope? The purpose of an envelope is to get opened. It's the same purpose the subject line has, to get open. That's its only real purpose. And so everything that's on this envelope is about, getting you to connect with this. I've labeled it here so you can see. These are all the attempted connections. As you can tell, pretty much every word on this envelope, and there's also plenty of words on the back too, because people do turn envelopes over, is an attempted connection with the reader, the prospect, the person that we're sending this to. This is a donor newsletter. This is not, even though it will make lots of money, pretty much guaranteed, because people are very generous to this cause. That's not its first intent. Its first intent is to report back to you what a good person you are. And you can see all of these things that I've labeled attempted connections. That was just to get the envelope opened. And then you open it up, and here's the front page, the front cover of the newsletter. And again, everything is there for a reason. You got eye contact for a reason. You got a slight smile on her face for a reason. Those are attempted connections. And the logo is made small on purpose because that's the least important thing here. The least important. All right, here's another test, the faster test. Seth, my buddy, He said this, and again, another big light bulb goes off. Our target markets are often lazy people in a hurry. What? Is that a bad thing? No, it is the thing you have to deal with. That's, you're trying to communicate. Well, communications only happens if someone responds. So that person who might respond is a lazy person in a hurry. It isn't that they're a bad person in a hurry. They're a lazy person in a hurry, and you have to deal with that. So here's a typical letter. This was sent out by a college, and they had me come in and train them recently. And I brought this letter up on screen and, said, okay, this is built to fail. Why is it built to fail? It's built to fail because it starts with a 4-line paragraph before my brain is actually warmed up. And therefore, most people, many people, predictably, will just go, looks like work, and they'll skip it. Right? Now, how do you get around that problem? It's pretty simple, actually. I just rewrote the opening and pushed down their 4-line paragraph and broke up their 4-line paragraph into shorter paragraphs and created this very skimmable, and that's highly important. You want to bring absolutely no labor to your readers, this very skimmable little beginning. I'm not afraid to tell you, and the two words that are doing the work there are I and you, because an appeal letter is a conversation between the person signing it and the person reading it, I and you. And we have an ellipsis, the 3 dots. I'm not afraid to tell you, pause. Your fellow Parky Cameron, well, she needs you. And she's not alone. Will you come to her aid? And notice I've had these 4 short paragraphs, and I've already asked once, will you come to her aid? I've asked with an open-ended, that's the autonomy, will you come to her aid? And, right now you're making a decision, because people make decisions very quickly. They're going to lean. They're either going to lean away or toward. And we know here, this is a great book from Dan Hill on Emotionomics. He's a psychologist, and he studies purchase behavior, basically. Why do people buy that, gaudy pink thing? And they have an emotional reaction, they have a gut reaction, that's the emotional part, and it happens in 3 seconds or less. So you want to work inside that window. You have to work inside that window. If you're trying to make your stuff far more successful, you have to work with the realities of the brain that you're trying to speak to. And so I use, this book you see there, the Adweek Copywriting Handbook. It's Joseph Sugarman. It's for commercials. It's for ads. But that's where you really learn your trade is from people like Sugarman. And he's saying here, what's the one thing I can do to make sure you will read my first sentence? And the only answer is make it short, right? And you didn't. And if you didn't, you've already started off by making a mistake. The goldfish and the human. In the year 2000, the human had a longer attention span than the goldfish. However, in 2005, 2006, 2007, Facebook starts to emerge from Harvard, starts to proliferate, starts to become a worldwide phenomenon. 2007, the iPhone, Apple introduces the iPhone. And by 2013, scientists remeasured the attention span of the human and the attention span of the goldfish. And now the goldfish has a longer attention span than the average human. And that is something else you have to deal with right away. You have to deal with the realities of the person on the receiving end. Now, here's another book, Psychology, again, commercial. It's about what's called neuromarketing. In other words, putting psychology to work to make sales. And it's called Brainfluence. And one of the great chapters in Brainfluence is this one, the Mom Was Wrong chapter. that in fact research, your mother told you flattery will get you nowhere, won't get you a second cookie, won't get you another helping of ice cream, blah, 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 even though, yes, I know I'm the best mother on the block. Mom was wrong. She didn't know about this. The truth is the human brain cannot discern between false flattery and true flattery. It likes all flattery, even though you're intellectually saying, well, I know you're just flattering me. Your brain somewhere deep is going, yes, you are that good. So when you ask and you thank and you report, you're also using those as opportunities to flatter me. For instance, here's the Animal Rescue League of Boston, which increased their giving significantly over 4 years when they applied donor centricity and started doing the one thing that all animal welfare charities hate, which is anthropomorphization, putting voice balloons on animals. Hey, as was pointed out to them, if it works for Walt Disney and made a fortune there, it'll work for you too. And the staff hated it, but the donors loved it. And this is what you got. I labeled with the hugs again, so you can see a little bit clearer, you know, with the subject line, "You did it!" exclamation point. Says my first hug. I open it up. You put a smile on Rocco's face. There's my second hug. And there's Rocco, and he's smiling. How about that? Your support has an important impact. It's hug after hug. By the way, insiders hate this stuff. They really do. And that's a good sign. If your boss doesn't think this is awful, then you've probably got something that's too weak to succeed. You should get some complaints. Here's my final example. And then if we have any time left, we can plug away at some questions maybe. This is the day the world changed in fundraising communications. All right, so this is Gillette, a children's hospital in the Twin Cities, and Gillette had a donor newsletter. You can see it at the front page headline is the one at the top, the one that says, "At Gillette, medical pioneers set the standards for spine care." Now that's about how great the hospital is. And that's how institutions do like to talk, you know, how great the university is, how great the hospital is, how great the science is, how great the teachers are, how great everything is. And they're hoping that you will give money because of that, right? And then on the bottom, you have the next issue of the very same donor newsletter went out to the very same list. Please hear me. It went out to the very same list. It was the subsequent issue. In between those two issues, the front page of these two issues, what happened? They got trained. They went to a workshop and they heard about donor centricity, right? So they created a brand new newsletter, and the front page cover had this young woman from Tanzania called Zawadi, and she had been born with her feet pointed backwards. And the missionary sisters there, you know, they phoned up Gillette. They knew the reputation of Gillette, actual medical pioneers, and said, "Can you do anything about it?" And they said, "Put her on a plane." And so Zawadi flies from Tanzania to the Twin Cities and goes to Gillette, and through several months, 6 so, of some painful operations, she gets her feet turned around so that they're pointed in the right direction. And then the issue of the newsletter comes out to the donors saying, "Thank you, donors. You helped a Tanzanian girl stand tall on her own 2 feet." Oh, breathtaking, right? And so here's the thing. There was a lot of resentment or resistance, or, yeah, what are you people doing? We have to talk about how great we are. And so the insiders loved the old newsletter, medical pioneers. Who loved it? Particularly the parents of the doctors loved it. They would call the fundraising department and say, "Send us some extra copies. We're going to pass them out around the neighborhood." But the outsiders, that is anybody not working in your office, that is all your donors, and pretty much even your board members, think of them as outsiders. You'll do so much better. They loved Zawadi. And how much did they love Zawadi? Well, let's take a peek. See, when they set out how great the organization is as the main theme of their donor newsletter, they were missing the point of target audience. And what does that target audience actually want? That audience wants to feel good, and the audience would respond in kind and send them about $5,000 back in the envelopes that were included with the newsletter, and that would not pay the bills even for the newsletter. So it was a losing operation. Now Zawadi goes out for the first time, and it doesn't stop. The money doesn't stop at 5,000. It just keeps rolling in, rolling in, rolling in, rolling in, rolling in, up to $50,000. They got a 1,000% increase between one newsletter and the next, simply because they talked a different way. And that's what donor centricity can do for you. That's what the nuts and bolts of donor communications can do for you. So I'm going to actually end with an emergency e-appeal. It was done by the people I introduced you to at the very beginning, the Better Fundraising Company, and they offered it, at no charge to the world, and it has raised millions and millions of dollars. But it's a very interesting appeal. I'm going to break it all down for you so that you can just copy it. Change the words, obviously, or you're not like Morningside Ministries. But Morningside Ministries are down in San Antonio, Texas. They use this formula that you're about to see, and I'm not going to leave you here on their letter for long. So I want you to see the formula. This was the reply device, and that number in the middle was the number of was a $32 offer. For every $32, we can provide upscaled high-speed internet medical access in our senior living communities. This is as the pandemic just started to hit. Here's their numbers. They had an opening rate of almost 50%, which is unheard of. The click-through rate, almost 10%, unheard of. They made their money. They made their money in about 48 hours. Their goal was 22,000 to retrofit both facilities that they operate. And the same template, the same one I'm about to show you, raised a couple of million for small orgs, and then it just kept raising. I mean, it's just crazy raising. First, state the message is urgent. I normally send you emails like this, but these are desperate times. Notice how they get straight to the point. And that's very important, because so many charities, that's the second thing they do, is get to the point. The first thing they do is talk about something else, which is off target and is a waste of my time, my being the reader. Then there's number two, describe how the new situation, the pandemic, is hurting your cause. And then ask for help. Now, notice this is number three, and I've put something in red here. This is from Better Fundraising. Most donors are not going to read past here. You see where we are? We're in paragraph 3, and we're already saying goodbye to most people, because most people have already made their decision whether they're going to give or not. And well, we'll see. And then it goes on with the rest of the letter. And there are 8 parts to this letter, and that's the 8 parts. Now here, I've taken the Morningside Ministries, which I happen to give to, by the way. It was so good that I gave to it, even though I don't live in San Antonio, and I do know the guy who's the fundraiser there, but I wouldn't have normally given. But he deserved a pat on the back, because this was good. He actually wrote pretty much right over that formula you just saw. And here I've labeled, taken the numbers from the different parts of the formula, and I've labeled Steve's letter so that you can see what he was doing when you study this on your own free time. Now we have exactly 1 minute and 53 seconds left for questions.
So we do have one question in the chat box, and it is from, from Alicia. In the current environment, how would you give a donor, quote, a hard hug, end quote, virtually? And if you need to unmute Alicia, we can ask her if you need.
No. I can guess. I mean, the thing is, what's been taken away from us? Well, a lot of what's been taken away is in person. So major gift officers, they rely heavily on personal contact in order to, keep their base happy. And actually, what you're just seeing here, all this Phil Psych stuff, the psychology of philanthropy, that's an attempt to move what major gift officers always do, habitually do, at least the successful ones, and to move it down into what you might call retail communications. That is, the appeals that go out to everybody, the newsletters that go out to all your donors, the e-newsletters, the social posts. All those things are retail, what we call retail communications. They go out to everybody. We want to get that personal down into those retail because it'll raise the amount of money coming in. How do you do a hard hug? You just get out of your way and stop being, timid, stop being withholding, and just pretend I'm there and hug the heck out of me. Go back to that letter from the Tijuana orphanage. You want to see what a hard hug looks like. Okay, any other questions?
We do. So I am being respectful of time. So if somebody needs to jump off, there is a replay of the video, a link that will be sent out. Tom, can you hang with us for another quick question?
Oh, of course. I'll hang as long as you want.
Yep, and then the slides will go out with them. So
cool.
Let's see. So Jesse says, what are your suggestions breaking through the COVID clutter? Every message seems to start with the same fatigued message.
Well, there are two things. I would first say that all the language you're using indicates to me that you're trying to escape. I see this a lot. There's donor fatigue. No, there is not. There are definitely bored donors, and your communications probably contribute to that. But they're not fatigued. They're looking to be interested. So read that question again, because I want to point out two words that I think are red herrings.
What are your suggestions breaking through the COVID clutter? Okay. Every message seems to start with the same fatigued message.
Well, those are the two words, fatigue and clutter. I don't think there is a clutter, and I don't think fatigue is a real thing. I think boring is a real thing. and I definitely, if you're talking to me and you're not talking about anything I'm interested in, this is what identity-based fundraising, that's the new word for donor-centered fundraising, identity-based fundraising. This is what it's based on. You've got to be talking to me about stuff I care about. And would you know what that is? Well, you'll never know if you don't ask me. One of the programs that's been set up at the refugee place is whenever there's a new donor, whenever, and they have hundreds of thousands of donors. Whenever a new donor comes in through the website, they ask, why did you give? And they even have a department set up where people are on the phones asking, why did you give? They want to know exactly why. I mean, you may not even tell them exactly why because it's private, but you like being asked, and then the communications that come out to you are no longer guesswork, which is you want to look at one problem in the fundraising world, in the communication side of it, we're guessing, and we don't need to guess. We should be able to talk to people, at least at some level, about the things that matter to them. Okay.
Well, that hour went fast, didn't it? And if you want to rejoin Tom, his next session is on the 15th at 10 a.m. If you're not registered, then you can do that the usual way through the website here at the center. And Heather just offered something from the University of Toledo on the subject of, quote, hugging and, quote, donors. At the University of Toledo, we actively use crowdfunding in order to connect with donors through video messages. We are also exploring one-on-one thank you videos to steward our donors. So thank you for that, Heather. And also there was, sorry, Tom, did you want to say something about that?
No. I just saying that's fabulous. I'd heard of somebody else doing the very same thing, using crowdfunding as a way to connect with people.
Mhm. Yeah. And so for those of you who are with us for the storytelling with Rachel Ramjatan and also Zach Huber, you know why we stacked all these trainings together. If you didn't get a chance to check out both Rachel's 2 sessions and Zach, he's with the Toledo Lucas County Public Library. If you're not familiar with Zach, he's the grant specialist over there. You might want to contact and introduce yourself to him. He's a great resource. Those replays are all available on our website. So if you want a refresher or you didn't get a chance to see those sessions live, you can go back and catch those. Those are in our blog, the Gearing Up blog. You can find all of the replays really quickly there. So thank you everyone for your time and attention. And hopefully we'll see all of you and some other friends who you tell this is just fabulous on the 15th when we reconnect with Tom again. So thank you everyone, and thank you, Tom.
Thank you all. Thanks for listening.